Good morning, everyone. So a little bit of context for today's video. I just finished watching The Shadow and Bone. I say just finished as if I didn't finish it like Friday night, but Shadow and Bone released on Netflix on Friday, so I finished and binged the entire show and I loved it so much, and I've just been in a fever dream of Ravka and Alina Starkov and the Darkling and Mal and Kaz and the rest, just Inej and everyone. I've just been in a fever dream of wanting to constantly be absorbed by the Grishaverse. I've said this before on my channel, but the Grishaverse is one of my all-time favorite fantasy universes ever, and I just loved the show so much. So I was feeling a bit inspired to kind of eat like Alina Starkov for a day, what she would eat in her days as a First Army soldier, and then when she transitioned to being in the Second Army, when she discovered her Grisha powers and her sun summoning powers. So I just kind of wanted to spend my day eating like Alina Starkov. So it's breakfast time right now, and I just made myself a waffle. A little bit of context on the waffle. Alina has never been shown on page or on the screen to eat waffles. That is very much a Nina Zenik love affair, but whenever anyone thinks of the Grishaverse, you kind of think about waffles, and it's just become the quintessential food associated with the Grishaverse. So I had to start off my day with a beautiful homemade waffle. I made the waffle from scratch myself. I've never done that before. I've literally always just used mixes. So I'm really excited to see how it'll taste. And I just added a few berries on top because why not? So I'm just going to eat a bit of my breakfast, and right now I'm in the middle of Rule of Wolves because I had put off reading this book until after I had seen the show, because I literally reread Shadow and Bone, like the entire trilogy, and Six of Crows for the release of the show. So I'm woefully behind, and I am almost to the end. There's a lot of stuff happening right now that I'm very stressed about, but it's okay because I have waffles, and I can only have my fingers crossed that everyone will come out on the other side okay, because at this point, I really don't know. As per usual, I have splashed a little bit too much maple syrup on my breakfast foods, but it's fine. Yeah, it's actually really good. The recipe I used called for cinnamon in the batter. I don't know that I would necessarily do that next time. Not that I don't like cinnamon, I adore cinnamon, but waffles aren't really a food that I associate with cinnamon, so it's an interesting taste experience. I like it though. One thing I really wanted to do, because kind of as a nod to the show, was in the end scene, and obviously spoilers for the show if you haven't seen it yet. What are you doing? Get on that. But in the show, when Nina is introducing waffles to Matthias, there's like a little cute scene where Matthias is like, is this cured boar in the waffle? Is it supposed to be sweet or savory? And Nina goes, yes, because it's obviously meant to be both. I really wanted to do something like that in this waffle, but unfortunately, I do not eat any sort of pig products because I am Muslim. So I did a bunch of research and tried to figure out if there was any sort of like cured pig boar alternative that I could use. And there's really quite nothing like it. There are obviously vegan options, but I just didn't feel like it would hold quite the same flavor profile that I was kind of going after. So I just opted to do a sweet waffle. Honestly, this is how many waffles the recipe yielded, and I wish I would have like quartered it because this is a lot of waffles for one person to eat. So it's lunchtime now, and this lunch has been in the making for a while. I'm a little nervous to have this because it is pickled fish on rye, and this is a meal that Alina traditionally in the book had for breakfast. This was the meal she had when she reached the little palace that like at night the next morning when Alina had joined all of the other Grisha in like the main hall for breakfast. There were tables of like that were laden with pickled herring and rye and a bunch of other like fruits and stuff like that provided from like the Grisha hothouses. Let me also just give you guys a little look at what it looks like. So the recipe I had followed to make the pickled fish was also calling for red onion and lemon to be pickled in with it as like flavorings. And I personally love pickled onions. It's something that I have in my fridge pretty often. I make it like on a weekly basis because I love just adding it to a dish really quickly for like a really quick tang. So I'm not worried about the pickled onions, I'm just worried about the fish. I knew that this was something that I had to try to make myself. I've never had pickled fish before. I adore fish. I eat mostly pescatarian, so fish is a lot of what makes up my regular diet, except it's normally just like pan-seared or roasted or steamed or something like that. It's never pickled. So I'm a little nervous to eat this, but I went online and I did a little bit of research, and I just want to talk a little bit about how difficult it actually is to source herring. Herring is a fish that if you live by the sea, it's really quite simple to get, but I live in a city and it was very difficult for me to source herring because herring is a fish that spoils pretty easily, so you don't get it in like your traditional supermarket like fish section, or you don't get it at like fish markets in general when you're far away from like the general just like coastline. So I actually ended up getting smelt because I'd read that smelt fish is a pretty good substitute for herring, especially in terms of like pickling it. So not truly an Alina meal, but I tried. The saints give me strength. Honestly, all I got in that bite was the red onion. all I can really taste was like the rye bread and the red onion. Let me try a little bit of the fish on its own. It doesn't actually taste like anything. It just kind of tastes tangy. Interesting. Would I eat this again? Maybe. It's surprisingly a lot more pleasant than I thought it would be. I think instead of having buttered rye bread though, I would have it on like a piece of rye bread and then maybe like a sour cream, because I feel like that would kind of offset the tang a little bit. But it's actually kind of good, and I'd probably eat it again. So for dinner, we have a little bit of poultry and let me just walk you guys through my thought process for dinner, because similar to lunchtime, there was a bit of a sourcing issue with ingredients, but it's fine. I made do with what I could find. So what I was going for was a roasted quail. Lee Bardugo actually has a recipe for the honeyed quail that Alina eats on her website, but I could not find quail. So I made this honeyed poultry with a Cornish hen because it wasn't quite as large as a regular sized chicken and it's not as tiny as a quail. It's just a happy medium and it's what was available to me, so I did it. Then in the show, she had potatoes with it. It looked like they were like those purple fingerling potatoes, but I had regular potatoes already in my house, so that's what I made. I just roasted them right in with the hen. And then in the books, when she's eating her honeyed quail, she also had what is this called? She also had like a sweet pea porridge. So I made a sweet pea porridge and I'm excited to try everything. This honestly just looks like a really good dinner. The potatoes have a really nice color from the oven. It's just good potatoes. They could have used a little bit more time in the oven, honestly, but they're soft, they cut pretty easily, and they're seasoned the same way as the hen. So now the hen, I cut myself a little breast piece and a leg piece. Look at how tiny that leg is. That's a very, very tiny leg. It's very juicy. But the flavor profile is good. It's really interesting too. Roasted is actually a little bit gamier than I expected. I always thought the hen had like a more mild flavor than chicken, but it's a little gamier than chicken. But the seasoning is really good. You get that little hit of citrus. I really like that. I'm pleased with this dinner. Now, sweet pea porridge. Oh my God, I would make this again. This is really good. It's buttery, it's cheesy. I love sweet peas. There's a little hint of sweetness from the onions. Yeah, I would definitely make this again. So that is my eating like Alina Starkov for the day. It was a really good food day. I must say I enjoyed pretty much everything that I ate. If you like this video, please give this video a thumbs up. I will be planning on doing a lot more eat like a book character type of videos just because I personally love cooking and I think this type of content is a really good way to kind of mesh those two interests. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing a meal with me or 3 meals with me as I tried out what Alina Starkov eats in a day. I hope you are all having an amazing evening, morning, afternoon, night, whenever you're watching this. Just thank you so much for joining me and I will catch you all in my next video. Bye!